What happened to Shelley Long, the Diane Chambers from Cheers, now that she's 75? Hi, I'm Sarah Reed. I grew up on reruns and Rabbit Air TVs, and I've spent hours in TV archives for this one. You're watching Golden American Legends, and today I'm pulling the curtain back on a star who went from center stage to quiet life. Shelley Long lit up Cheers from 1982 to 1987. She won an Emmy in 1983 and 2 Golden Globes in 1982 and 1983. That's not just fame, that's TV history. But behind those trophies was a person making choices that fame couldn't fix. Years later, Shelley said, "I didn't want to keep doing the same episode over and over. I didn't want it to become old and stale." I found that line while digging through old interviews and Emmy records. It says so much, doesn't it? In this story, we'll move step by step. The rise, the exit, the movies, the returns, the family, the solitude, and the truth from the myths. I actually pulled those Emmy stats from the Television Academy archives. It's wild to see how celebrated she was. Leave a comment with your favorite Diane Chambers moment. I want to know what scene still makes you smile. Let's start at the bar in Boston, where a brilliant, bookish waitress changed TV forever. Remember the first time you saw Diane stroll into that Boston bar with a stack of books and perfect timing? I do. I still watch that pilot and think, wow, she owned a room with wit and elegance. Shelley Long's Diane Chambers wasn't just funny, she was sharp. She was a force. From 1982 to 1987, she starred on the hit NBC sitcom Cheers and turned a quirky ensemble into a cultural touchstone. The chemistry with Ted Danson's Sam Malone hooked us. Their dance of brains versus charm was a weekly event. Awards came fast. Shelley won an Emmy in 1983 and 2 Golden Globes in 1982 and 1983. Every old episode guide I pulled confirms it. She became one of the era's most beloved comedy leads. Even Ted Danson admitted back in the day that their working relationship was a roller coaster sometimes, but it was part of the magic. It felt real, and that made it classic. I dug up vintage magazine profiles from the mid-'80s, and the language is the same over and over. Timing, elegance, and that Diane twist of irony. She was a TV legend in real time. So if the show was soaring and Diane was iconic, how could anyone walk away at the top? That's the next turn in our story. Why would a hit sitcom lose its star when everything looked perfect? That was the shock in 1987 when Shelley Long left Cheers after 5 seasons. I combed through old interviews and press clippings, and the picture is clearer than the tabloid noise. Shelley called it a very difficult choice and said she wanted to give priority to her family and to a new film production company she'd started in connection with Disney. Years later, in a 2007 interview, she added something that hits home for any creative person. She didn't want the work to become old and stale. That's honest. That's brave. Around her, rumors swirled of tension. But when I listened to cast recollections, the theme was professional respect. Ted Danson once described losing her as like losing his dance partner. That line stuck with me because it says 2 things at once. They needed each other on screen, and the change would be huge. So she made her move. She traded a sure-thing television classic for the gamble of big-screen stardom and more control. Did Hollywood welcome her with open arms, or did the movies teach a harder lesson about timing and luck? Let's follow her onto the big screen and see what happened next. Did the leap to movies pay off? She definitely gave it a run. Picture the late 80s press. Diane Chambers teams with Bette Midler. That was Outrageous Fortune in 1987, a lively comedy that tried to bottle her TV spark for theaters. She'd already shared the screen with Tom Hanks in The Money Pit in 1986, and by 1989 she headlined Troupe Beverly Hills. These were real shots. And around the time she left Cheers, she talked about a production partnership and so many wonderful things ahead. I went back through film databases and reviews. The verdict? Not flops, but not game-changing blockbusters either. The movies found audiences, but they didn't turn her into a bankable film icon. That's the tricky part of Hollywood. Timing is a ghost. Talent is real, but timing decides the crown. Shelley's choices weren't crazy. They were calculated, hopeful, and bold. Still, the star aura that TV gave her didn't fully transfer to theaters. So, what then? She did what pros do. She kept working, but she pivoted. She circled back to television, this time as a beloved guest and a welcome surprise. Let's jump to those TV comebacks that reminded everyone how much they missed Diane. Ever notice how a familiar face can light up a whole episode? That's what happened every time Shelley popped back on our screens. She returned as Diane for the Cheers finale in 1993 and earned another Emmy nomination for it. Then she visited Frasier in 1996 and snagged an Emmy nod again. That's not nostalgia, that's craft. Much later, she turned up in Modern Family as DeDe Pritchett, Jay's ex-wife and the mother of Claire and Mitchell. 8 episodes across the run, and fans loved seeing her again. I checked IMDb and TV guides while building the story. After 2018, the credits slowed down to a crawl, and in 2021, she appears in The Cleaner. After that, there are no upcoming projects listed. It looks like she chose to step back on her own terms. Quick mid-roll note from me. If you're into deep, respectful stories about classic stars and where they end up, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Back to Shelley. Those returns showed the industry still respected her. But the quieter years were coming. And the reason wasn't a scandal, it was life. So what did home look like when the set lights dimmed? What was life like when the studio clock stopped and the mom clock started? Shelley Long married Bruce Tyson, a Los Angeles securities broker, in 1981. Their daughter, Juliana, was born in March 1985. When I traced her decisions, a pattern stood out. She often put family first. Remember that 1987 line about giving priority to her family? It wasn't a press spin, it was how she lived. During the Cheers years, production worked around her pregnancy. Viewers saw Diane sparkling on camera, but off camera, Shelley was a new mom. I found old People magazine notes about Juliana's birth and the way Shelley spoke about balancing the work. It's the classic push and pull. The job loves you most when you're busiest, but your heart belongs at home. For a while, that balance held. She kept acting, but on schedules and roles that fit life, and it looked like it would last. Then came the hardest chapter. A long marriage is its own story, and sometimes it breaks. What happens when the person who once shared your spotlight steps out of the frame for good? That turn changes everything, and it pushed Shelley farther from Hollywood's noise. How do you rebuild when a 22-year marriage ends? Shelley and Bruce Tyson finalized their divorce in 2004 after more than 2 decades together. Public reports suggest they separated in 2003. Their daughter was grown, but a loss like that still hits hard. I went through news archives from the 2000s. You see the credits thinning out. You see fewer interviews. Some columns at the time hinted she struggled emotionally after the split, but Shelley never made public statements about her mental health, and there are no official records saying more, so I won't speculate. What I can say, as someone who studies these lives, is that many stars face this crossroads. The world still remembers the role, but your real life demands space, quiet, and healing. When I looked at the gap between her earlier media presence and later years, that silence felt intentional. It was a choice to step back. There's a kind of strength in that, even if it looks like disappearance from the outside. So where did that quiet lead? To a slower, simpler daily rhythm far away from red carpets. Let me show you the few times we've seen her since. So where is Shelley Long now at 75? Living quietly. Newsweek described her as maintaining a relatively low-key life after stepping back from the limelight. In late 2024, Fox News ran photos of her walking a small chihuahua near her home in the Pacific Palisades area of Los Angeles. Baseball cap, casual jacket, a small smile as she stopped to pet her dog. No entourage, no big event, just a calm morning with a pet. I stitched this picture together by cross-checking local reports and entertainment outlets. There's no list of new roles, no announcement of a comeback tour. After her 2021 turn in The Cleaner, the credits go quiet. That doesn't mean crisis, it can mean peace. I think about that sometimes. After years of being Diane to all of us, maybe she wanted to be simply Shelley to herself. That's not failure, that's a human choice. Next, we'll look at one moment when the spotlight tried to pull her back, a big reunion for an old TV family, and she still stayed home. What does that tell us about where she is now? What happens when your TV family throws a party and you don't go? At the 2024 Primetime Emmys, the Cheers cast reunited on stage. Ted Danson, Kelsey Grammer, Rhea Perlman, George Wendt, John Ratzenberger. The crowd loved it, but Shelley Long wasn't there. There was no public reason given, no statement, just absence. Fox News even noted how her rare dog walk sighting came right after that reunion night. I checked the show rundown and transcripts to see who appeared. It was a warm tribute. And still, no Shelley. For context, Woody Harrelson also missed the reunion, but his schedule was the likely reason. With Shelley, it looked like a personal choice. Privacy over applause. When I look at the full arc of her story, that decision fits. She made her mark. She gave us Diane. And then she chose a life where she doesn't have to perform for anyone. It stings for fans who wanted a group photo. I get that. But it also tells us she's consistent. The quiet is the point. So let's clear the air. What is true about Shelley today and what is tabloid fiction? Let's separate gossip from what we really know. I dug into Associated Press archives from the early 90s. In 1992, during a swirl of rumors, an AP Q&A bluntly said, "Long's alive. It's her career that hasn't been doing too well since she left Cheers in 1987. That line is a time capsule. It proves the rumor mill has chased her for decades and it keeps getting it wrong. Fast forward to now. The facts are simple. She has one daughter, Juliana, born in 1985. She made occasional TV returns, including Modern Family, and her last on-screen credit was The Cleaner in 2021. Since then, no verified new projects. Recent coverage shows her walking her dog and living quietly in Los Angeles. There's no credible report of serious illness, no scandal, just a private person choosing a private life. I know the internet loves a dramatic twist, but the deeper I went into old magazines, Emmy records, and entertainment databases, the more the noise fell away. The truth is quieter, but it's stronger. With the facts set, we can finally talk about meaning. What does Shelley Long's path tell us about fame, aging, and legacy? Here's the part that hits my heart. Even when a star steps away, the work doesn't. Diane Chambers still lives in reruns, streams, memes, and lists of classic sitcom characters. I see her pop up on nostalgia feeds all the time, that bookish grin and razor wit. When I revisit Cheers, I'm reminded that Shelley's timing shaped a whole decade of comedy, and it still echoes in modern shows. The legacy is this: she defined a role so clearly that it survives without constant interviews or red carpets. That's rare. Her story also opens a bigger door. What happens when the applause fades? Some cling to the stage lights. Others walk into a quiet morning, take the dog out, and choose a life that fits their soul. Neither path is wrong. Shelley's choice just isn't loud. It's steady. It invites us to treat aging icons with more care and less gossip. I think that's the lesson. Our memories can be a tribute instead of a demand. Hold the work, hold the person, and let the silence mean peace. Now, let's tie this back to where we started and bring it home. So what does Shelley Long at 75 teach us? To me, it's this: behind every character we love is a person who gets to choose how to live. Shelley gave us a jewel of a performance as Diane Chambers. Then she chose family, tried movies, returned for some beautiful TV moments, and finally embraced a quiet life. That isn't a fall from grace. It's a different kind of grace. You've been watching Golden American Legends, where I connect the golden past to the lives our legends live now. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please like the video, share it with a fellow Cheers fan, and subscribe so you don't miss what's next. Thanks for watching. Truly, I appreciate you spending time in the archives with me. Which beloved TV icon's later life story should we cover next? Drop your pick in the comments and tell me why that story matters to you. I can't wait to read your ideas and keep this conversation going. Take care and keep the classics close.